Hey there, welcome back to my channel. I'm here. You know when someone calls you and asks if you want to go somewhere really cool at the last minute, and you have to choose between going on this awesome adventure or staying safe and warm inside your house? Well, imagine if that call came and went, and then the next day the entire world turned into winter. Snow fell for months and didn't stop, killing off nearly everyone in its path. No, I'm not describing what happened to poor Kevin McAllister's family in Home Alone 2. I'm describing a real-life volcanic winter, and these events have happened many times over throughout Earth's history. In fact, they've happened so many times that they're considered a major factor in why humans evolved the way we did, and even where we chose to settle down and build our societies. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at some of the biggest volcanic winters of all time and how they changed humanity forever. Volcanic winters are caused by massive volcanic eruptions, but they're not exactly the same thing as the more common volcanic summer. While the two terms may sound similar, volcanic winters and summers describe opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of the effects volcanoes can have on the environment. A volcanic summer happens when a volcano releases large amounts of CO2. The carbon waste starts to trap heat in Earth's lower atmosphere, leading to global temperatures rising for several years after the eruption. But the flip side of this is a volcanic winter, which occurs when a volcano releases huge amounts of sulfate aerosols into the atmosphere. These aerosols form an atmospheric layer that reflects sunlight away from Earth, resulting in the planet entering a cooling period that could last for years. But just how much cooling are we talking about here? During a typical volcanic winter, average global temperatures drop around 2 degrees Celsius, which might not sound like much until you realize that we've only seen temperature increases of that magnitude during major volcanic eruptions once every couple thousand years. One of the most well-known volcanic winters in history was the 1816 eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia. At the time, Mount Tambora was the largest active volcano in the world, although that title has since been taken by a few others. The explosion was so big that it's still considered the deadliest eruption in recorded human history, killing over 92,000 people. And while the death toll was staggering, Tambora's impact didn't end there. It also sent around 51 cubic kilometers of ash and rock into the atmosphere, blocking out the sun and causing temperatures to fall dramatically for the next 5 years. This effect was felt particularly hard in Europe and North America, where the average temperature dropped by 5 degrees Celsius below normal. But the cooling caused by Mount Tambora was nothing compared to what came later. In 1815, Mount Kelut in Java, Indonesia erupted with a volcanic explosivity index of 6. That's the second highest rating possible. The eruption ejected around 34 cubic kilometers of material into the air and caused thousands of deaths. And while it wasn't as deadly as Tambora, it had an even bigger impact on the global climate because unlike Tambora, Kelut released a higher percentage of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. The sulfur combined with water vapor and formed sulfuric acid aerosols that made their way into the stratosphere. There they reflected sunlight and caused temperatures worldwide to plummet by 2.7 degrees Celsius below normal. And this wasn't just a one-year blip either. The eruption caused significant climate disruption for 5 years straight. Some parts of the northern hemisphere even experienced summer temperatures 10 degrees below normal. But by far, the worst hit area was Europe, which saw temperatures plummet to 18 degrees below normal in the winter of 1816 to 1817. This event became known as the year without a summer. And when you heard about it, do you think you would have stayed inside and snuggled on the couch with some hot cocoa and a good book? Or would you have gone outside to check out the never-ending winter wonderland? Let me know in the comments section below. The 1816 eruption of Mount Kelut isn't the only time this has happened. There was another event that seemed to come out of nowhere and totally wrecked everyone's plans for summer fun. It was the year 1659, and Old Faithful was having an extra splashy 4th of July celebration. Just kidding. It was actually the year 1600, and El Chichinal in Mexico had just erupted with a force of 35 cubic kilometers of debris. It's estimated that it lowered global temperatures by 2 degrees Celsius for 3 years. And because of how abruptly the cold temperatures arrived, people were completely caught off guard. Crops froze, and livestock perished. The eruption also inspired a famous painter to capture the chilling landscape in his work. You probably recognize this painting called The Nightmare of Stone by Dutch Golden Age painter Peter Bruegel the Younger. While there's no record of him specifically witnessing the eruption, he likely painted the piece based on descriptions from those who did see it, including the Spanish conquistador Alonso de Santa Cruz, who wrote, "One day while we were there, a dreadful tempest arose which darkened the sky, so that we were as though in the depths of night. The wind grew so violent that it knocked us down like a whirlwind." While the painting shows people enjoying their wintry new world, Bruegel's contemporary Francisco de Quevedo had a much darker view of the wintry conditions. He described it as a season without end. It seemed that God wanted to plunge the world into a bitter winter. Okay, so I get it. It's pretty cozy inside. We got our hot cocoa, we got our books, maybe a fireplace. But what if I told you there was a way to make things even better? What if I told you you could use your phone to find other videos just like this one that help you discover the wonders of science, technology, engineering, and math? And now, back to the video. Now let's get back to surviving the never-ending winter. While Europeans were settling in for some extra cozy nights inside, another group of people on the other side of the world were dealing with the harsh effects of another massive eruption. It was the year 1257, and Mount Vesuvius in Japan just violently unleashed itself on the unsuspecting populace. It released 37 cubic kilometers of material, and unfortunately, there's very little historical documentation about it. However, the eruption likely triggered a volcanic winter, because centuries later, residents of nearby villages still told stories of the sudden onset of winter. So what makes Mount Vesuvius's eruption so interesting is that it's considered a potential cause for the collapse of the Yayoi culture, one of Japan's earliest Bronze Ages. The Yayoi culture is named after Yayoi period in Japanese history, which lasted from 300 BCE to 300 CE. Archaeologists believe that the population decline caused by the eruption and subsequent volcanic winter could be the reason why the Yayoi culture fell apart. The effects of volcanic winters aren't always as drastic. Some only cause minor disruptions in temperature that go unnoticed among the chaos of war, famine, and plague. Such was the case in 43 CE, when Mount Unzen in Japan erupted. It unleashed 35 cubic kilometers of ash and pumice and caused global temperatures to drop by about 1 degree. But as historian Eric H. Klein points out, the eruption wouldn't have had a major impact on the Roman Empire. If people hadn't already been struggling due to years of civil unrest, volcanic winters can also have smaller localized impacts as well. For example, in 1626, Mount Hudson in New Zealand blew its top and unleashed 30 cubic kilometers of material. While it didn't have noticeable effects on the global climate, the eruption did cause some serious damage in the surrounding area. In fact, it wiped out every trace of human habitation in the region for the next 80 years. According to archaeologist Athol Anderson, when European explorers found the area after the eruption, they thought they were the first people to ever set foot there. But thanks to excavations and scientific testing, we now know that the area was once home to a thriving Maori village. Unfortunately, Mount Edgecombe's eruption basically erased all evidence of its existence, forcing the people living there to abandon their homes and flee. So obviously volcanic winters can be deadly, but what makes them so dangerous? It all comes down to one tiny little word: timing. Most of the time, volcanic winters don't happen in isolation. Instead, they occur alongside other climatic shifts like the beginning of a volcanic summer, a solar minimum, or an El Niño event. And when a volcanic winter aligns with a solar minimum, the results can be catastrophic. For example, the 1646 eruption of Mount Krakatau coincided with a solar minimum, meaning that the amount of energy coming from the sun decreased At the same time, the volcano was spewing aerosols into the atmosphere. This combination of events led to temperatures dropping by 2 degrees Celsius for 4 years. So people had to endure not only frigid weather, but also unusually dark days, because less energy was coming from the sun. And if you've ever lived through a cloudy winter day, you know how depressing that can be. But if you pair that with sub-freezing temperatures and a lack of sunshine for multiple years straight, it's enough to put anyone in a funk. Volcanic winters haven't always been bad news for humans, though. In fact, they may have played a role in helping us thrive. For example, researchers studying ancient DNA believe that the colder temperatures caused by Mount Toba's super eruption in Indonesia around 74,000 years ago actually helped modern humans move into new habitats. As sea levels fell and new land masses emerged, Homo sapiens moved into these areas, replacing the Neanderthals who couldn't adapt to the changing environment. Another example is the Black Death, which killed nearly half of Europe's population in the 14th century. Historians and scientists alike believe that the colder temperatures caused by volcanic winters actually helped slow the spread of the plague because people were spending more time indoors, which limited person-to-person contact. Whether it's freezing rain or snowstorms, a long winter can definitely dampen your spirits. But I hope this video helped you appreciate that it could have been a lot worse. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.